Welcome to the Nurturing Resilience with Kristen Reese and Chandra Jones. We're excited to have you all today. My name is Renee, and I will be moderating today's session. I will be monitoring questions in the chat, and if you have any issues, you can send me a direct message through the Zoom chat. We ask that everyone stay on mute during the session unless you have a question or to participate in the conversation. This helps us reduce background noise. We encourage you to be on video if you can, so that we can see each other and build community. But if you're more comfortable with your camera off or have children or need other reasons to have your camera off, we understand. If you would like to read the transcript or see closed caption for this session, please click on the button that says CC Live Transcript, then choose Show Subtitle. Again, that's CC Live Transcript, and then choose Show Subtitle. You can hide the subtitles by repeating this process. Kristen Reese serves as a Senior Parent and Project Coordinator at the Center of Strategic Health Partnerships at Michigan Public Health Institute. Kristen contributes to various family-focused projects, including Midwest Genetics Network, and serves as Program Director for the Michigan Family to Family Health Information Center. As the parent of a young adult, as a parent with a young adult with a disability, she encourages others to use their voice to build strength-based partnerships where decisions and responsibilities are shared. Now I'll introduce Chandra Jones. Chandra is a parent leader, community trainer, and facility, and the owner of the Parent Engagement Group, LLC. Chandra holds degrees in family life education, early childhood development, and mental health and social work. She has served on numerous boards and committees and has had the opportunity to speak at several national, state, and local conferences. She believes that parent and professional partnerships are essential for systems change, and that parents should be equal partners at the table, sharing in decision-making. Chandra believes that it is essential to show respect, then reflect, now connect to cultivate growth, and understand the value that parents bring to the table. As a mom of 6, including children with special health and educational needs, Chandra has had to follow the roadmap to resiliency on her own journey and encourages other parents to take the trip. Now I'll turn it over to our presenter to start the session. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Renee. It's a pleasure to be here today. Obviously, we already introduced ourselves, but Chandra is going to read a little disclaimer for you all.
Hi, everyone. So we are not mental health professionals. We are seasoned parent leaders with experience facing multiple types of challenges in our lives. Our role is to help facilitate discussion on the topic of building resilience. Our purpose is to share experiences and provide additional tools and resources. Any suggestions or resources shared are not endorsed by our organization and/or funders. Use at your own discretion. Also, please note, any discussion is not meant to replace the care of a healthcare professional, and we encourage you to reach out to a healthcare professional if you are experiencing a mental health crisis.
Thank you, Chandra. So we're a couple of parents who are going to share some of our information and knowledge with you all today. A lot of this comes from lived experience. So I hope you will find it helpful. I do want to say that we are going to do a couple of activities in a little bit and ask that you could have just a couple of pieces, oh, it's hard to see because of the blur, just a couple pieces of blank paper. It doesn't matter if they're lined, but if you can get like an 8x11, just standard piece of paper, you'll need 2 of them. And then if you have any handy, some just regular size Post-it notes, or take a piece of paper and make something about this size, you'll need maybe 3 to 5 at the most. So if you guys can arm yourself with that so that when we get to our activities, that would be fantastic. So we're going to talk today about nurturing resiliency. Nurturing resiliency is, I just lost my notes. Nurturing resiliency is not something necessarily that you're born with, right? There are some people who are naturally resilient. However, resiliency is something that you can cultivate and learn as you go. And we're going to talk about 3 different areas of nurturing resiliency. We're going to talk about fortifying yourself, nurturing yourself, and then cultivating community in terms of ways that you can get support to be more resilient. So the first one is fortifying yourself. How can you build your resiliency to face challenges that you encounter? Everyone has challenges in life, right? I mean, I don't know anyone who does not have some sort of challenge in their life or encounter any hardship. Even though it may look like there's some people on Facebook who never have any problems, I think most people do at some point, right? And have you, and yeah, on the flip side of that, have you ever met somebody who has faced a lot of challenges and yet they're still standing, right? They're still persevering. They still have the ability to find joy in their life. So being resilient isn't like being a mighty oak, right? We think of oak trees as the symbol of strength and just, you know, everything you want to be because they're so solid and so strong. But we're going to invite you to think about it more like a willow tree. Willow trees are flexible, they bend, they flow with the wind. And chances are they're not going to be brought down the same way the mighty oak will. So we're going to explore some ways to fortify yourself so that we can bend and flow with the challenges that we may face. So the first, as I said, we all face challenges, right? There can be a lot of sources of stress. Is there anyone here who has absolutely no stress in their life? If so, I want to know your secret. You know, think about being a parent, any relationship in your life. Relationships can be so complicated and difficult at times. Work, particularly if you do have a family. I know I've had times in my life where finding good work-life balance has been extremely difficult and extremely stressful. Your health concerns, right? I'm at that age now where not only am I starting to have my own health concerns, but I have one parent left, my mother, and my mother has a lot of health issues. She's just turned 80 last year and experiencing a lot with her health going on, and that's been really, really stressful for me. So, you know, even when life is going good, even when we think, you know, everything's going great, we're getting through, there's still stress. I mentioned in my introduction that I have an adult daughter with a chronic health condition, and I think oftentimes for myself, I get so acclimated to the stress that I don't even realize that I'm experiencing stress and that it is taking a toll on me. So, you know, building your resilience helps that, as well as having a community that can help you and provide support. Chandra?
So we're going to talk about having a growth mindset. And so the definition of a growth mindset is much simpler than it sounds. In a nutshell, it is the belief that skills and intelligence can be improved with effort and persistence. People with a growth mindset stay resilient in the face of difficulty. So as Kristen talked about the willow tree and the bending and swaying with the wind. And a few points to cover under having a growth mindset is, it isn't always about you. Think about being a part of something bigger than yourself. What else can you get involved with? And also consider that the environment and people around you, they can have a significant impact on your growth and development. Factors such as social support, access to resources, and opportunities for learning and growth can all contribute to your ability to develop a growth mindset. A challenge may help you to develop greater empathy and understanding, which in turn can help you build stronger relationships and achieve greater success. And then consider perspective. There are multiple perspectives and ways of looking at a situation, not only as a negative, but also as a positive. Additionally, adopting a growth mindset requires a willingness to challenge one's own assumptions and beliefs about a particular situation, and also to be open to learning from feedback. By considering perspective, you can gain new insights and expand your understanding of your experiences and the world around you, which can ultimately lead to greater personal growth. And as you're proactive, it's helpful to acknowledge and accept your emotions during hard times. But it's also important to help you foster self-discovery by asking yourself, what can I do about a problem in my life? If the problem seems too big to tackle, you can break them down into manageable pieces. For example, if you got laid off from work, you may not be able to convince your boss it was a mistake to let you go, but you can spend an hour each day developing your top strengths or working on your resume. Taking initiative will remind you that you can muster motivation and purpose even during stressful periods of your life, increasing the likelihood that you'll rise up during painful times again. And as you set goals and move towards those, develop some realistic goals and do something regularly, even if it seems like a small accomplishment. That enables you to move forward, move towards the things that you want to accomplish. So instead of focusing on tasks that seem unachievable, ask yourself, what's one thing I can accomplish today that helps me move in the direction I want to go? For example, if you're struggling with the loss of a loved one and you want to move forward, you could join a grief support group in your area. And then you want to reflect on growth. Look for opportunities for self-discovery. People often find that they have grown in some respect as a result of a struggle. I mean, I know I have with some of the things that I've gone through. So for example, after a tragedy or a hardship, people have reported better relationships and a greater sense of strength, even while feeling vulnerable. That can increase their sense of self-worth and heighten their appreciation for life. So maintain a hopeful outlook. It's hard to be hopeful when life isn't going your way. An optimistic outlook empowers you to expect that good things will happen to you, but it's more than just expecting it. 5 steps people take that are hopeful are the following. Don't just wish, imagine and act. Hopeful people have a vision for what they want their life to look like and work towards making it happen. They believe in their capacity to achieve the outcomes. They recognize that their path will be marked by stresses, roadblocks, and failure, but do it anyway. Evidence suggests that the belief that you can achieve something may be more important for hope than knowing how to achieve it. So that what you think about, you'll attract. And also with embracing uncertainty, a future that is uncertain can still hold a lot of possibilities. We don't want to just focus on, oh, it's negative now to be negative then. No, it gives an opportunity for even greater possibilities. As such, uncertainty is not a reason for inaction. It's a reason to have hope. And as you manage your attention, hopeful people typically spend less time paying attention to emotionally sad or threatening information. And remember, you don't have to go it alone. We can stay hopeful if we connect with others who hold us accountable and remind us of why our struggles matter. We will talk more about relationships and being a part of something bigger than yourself. And then also, what's the evidence? Cultivating and sustaining hope requires that we gather evidence from our own lives, history, and the world at large, and use that evidence to guide our actions. When we can see the results of our efforts, we're strengthened to continue pushing forward, regardless of how small the success is. And as we practice radical acceptance is a concept and a practice in psychology that involves accepting and embracing reality as it is, rather than fighting or denying it like it doesn't exist. It also means acknowledging and accepting difficult or unpleasant situations, emotions, or thoughts without judgment or resistance. Radical acceptance is often used in dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT. It's a type of therapy developed to help people manage intense emotions and improve their relationships with others. It is particularly helpful for those who struggle with anxiety, depression, trauma, or other mental health issues. Radical acceptance involves several steps, including recognizing and acknowledging the reality of the situation and accepting it without judgment or resistance, and letting go of any efforts to change it, and finding a way to move forward in a positive and productive manner. And the goal of radical acceptance is to help individuals let go of their suffering and focus on what they can control in the present moment. By embracing reality as it is, rather than fighting against it, individuals can find greater peace, acceptance, and an inner strength.
So that brings us to our first activity. Hopefully you've had the opportunity to grab a piece of paper. For this one, you'll just need the paper and a pen, pencil, marker, crayon, whatever's handy. So on your large piece of paper, or your piece of paper, I'd like you to draw a circle, just a big circle, all the way, covering as much of the paper as you can, but you want a great big circle there. This is called the circle of concern. So I'd like you to take your sticky notes or small pieces of paper, or you can even write it on the piece of paper if you don't have anything handy. I'd like you to think of something that is a concern, a problem, a challenge, and try to pick 3 or 4 and just quickly jot them down and put them in the circle of concern. So I came up with 3 just to kind of give you an example. The first one is I mentioned my daughter has a chronic health condition. She's 24 and generally healthy, but with her particular condition, they do have a risk of early death. That's a pretty big concern, right? I mean, thinking about losing my child is just unimaginable. And it's something that I struggle with sometimes. I also worry about my own health, right? My daughter doesn't really have anybody else. She has a sister, but her sister has her own family. So if something happens to me, I worry about who's going to take care of her. So I worry about my own health and being there and being able to care for her. And the last one is I'm not getting enough sleep. I'm really struggling. I have some insomnia. I don't sleep enough. So those were my three. So hopefully you were able to come up with at least three and put them in your circle of concern. So we're going to take a look at your concerns and think about, do you have any control over these things? So in the middle, I would like you to draw another circle, and that is our circle of control. Then I'd like you to look at your concerns and think about, do I have control over these concerns? So I kind of do and don't. I'm thinking about my daughter. As much as we can't live in a bubble. I'd like her to have as many life experiences and as she can. But, ultimately, I can't control whether or not she dies early. So I can't put that one in there. Again, worrying about my own health. Do I have any control over that? Yeah, I don't have any control over something happening to me, but I do control my health to some degree. So I would probably, the better I take care of myself, the less likely I'm going to die from it, right? So I'm going to put that in control because I feel like I have control over that. And that really comes back to accountability, recognizing that I do have control over that and that there are things I need to do. I need to have my regular visits. I need to take my medication. I need to control my diabetes, all of these things. So I do have control, and it's very important for me to do those things. The last one, getting enough sleep, my insomnia, I don't really have any control over that. I've struggled with this my whole life, having insomnia. So I'm going to leave that one in just my area of concern. So hopefully you were able to look at your concerns and identify if any of those concerns were able to be moved into your circle of control. Lastly, I'd like you to draw one more circle between the two. And this is the circle of influence. Thinking about my three examples, and the one that I don't have any control over, my insomnia, do I have the ability to influence it? And I do. I do have the ability to influence it. I can talk with my doctor about options. I can practice good sleep hygiene. That's something I know I struggle with. Taking myself to bed, turning off the brain, not starting one more, activity at 9:00 at night because you're tempted because, kids in bed, everything's quiet. You can just get that one more load of laundry done, right? So I'd have to move that into the circle of influence. So you may find that there are things that you thought you didn't have any control over, but that you have influence, right? And it goes to show that we aren't just helpless sitting around having no control over things. There are things we can change or control in our lives that are concerns. That makes it easier to come up with actionable steps. lastly, I'd like to say, if there is something left in your circle of concern, how much energy do you give it? And I think this is a really key point of this activity. If there is something that you can neither influence or control, giving it your energy is kind of pointless. And I think that relates back to what Chandra was talking about, radical acceptance. You don't have to like it. You don't have to say it's good, but you just let it go, right? If I spent all my time worrying about something that I have no control and no influence, that's just going to suck my energy, right? Versus the things that I know I can influence or control. So hopefully when you think about this, it helps you look at your concerns differently, right? What can I do to take action? What can I do to influence things that are a concern of mine? And what things do I maybe just kind of need to let go? Does anyone have any questions, comments? You can put them in the chat or unmute. Was anyone surprised by what they found they had the ability to influence or control? No? Okay, we'll move on. All right, next we're going to talk about nurturing yourself. And I love this definition. Nurturing is defined as to care for and encourage the growth or development of, or to cherish. And I think that's really important to think about when we talk about nurturing yourself, to cherish, right? When you cherish something, it's pretty special. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes we don't treat ourselves very special, especially when we have a lot of competing things for our energy and attention: children, husbands, family, work. We're not going to talk about it in terms and call it self-care. I think self-care is one of those terms that unfortunately has kind of got just ground into the dirt. Like, you got to practice self-care. You got to practice self-care. And it is important, but we want to shift it to thinking a little differently than just self-care. And I think it's important when people say practice self-care, right? I keep practicing, and I never master it. But I never seem to, actually say I can do it all the time. I keep trying. But it's really hard to take care of yourself, especially when you have so many other things competing for your time and energy. The last thing you have time for is self-care, right? The other issue is self-care is oftentimes thought about as like a luxurious act or pampering yourself, a long soak in the tub or getting a pedicure, getting a massage, or taking a vacation somewhere, right? And the problem is with this version of self-care, it takes a lot of time, energy, and oftentimes money. I don't know about you all, but that's just not something I have bags and bags laying around. So we're going to toss out this idea of self-care, and we're going to ask you to not just do self-care. It's about the definition I just gave about nurturing and cherishing, not just making time to do something fun and pampering.
We don't always need fancy things to nurture ourselves. We can, go for a walk, read a book, engage in a hobby, actively engage in the practices that's for our benefit. What are those things that you like to do on the side? I know for me it's journaling and being mindful. And those are things that are for my benefit as well as my children see me do those things, they have become more interested in those practices that are beneficial for themselves as well. And not adopting a I can push through it attitude, because this numbs us to what we are feeling. So when we feel like we must work hard and, oh, I got to be strong and overcome weakness, the problem is when we numb ourselves from listening to our own needs, we lose the ability to connect with our hearts and our minds and our bodies. This makes nurturing yourself a challenge. How can we take care of ourselves when we don't know what parts of us need to be taken care of? Because we're not connecting with those pieces. And then nurturing yourself means learning to connect, respect, and build a relationship with our feelings. Over time, acknowledging our feelings no longer feels like a weakness. It's data, it's information that's telling us what part of us needs to be taken care of. So we just have to listen. And I know that's something that's taken me a while. I'm getting better, but taking me a while to do. And so if you do not nurture yourself, you won't be able to take care of others to the best of your ability. You can give others the best version of you, not less of you, when you take care of yourself. And I want to say, really listen to yourself, so that you don't end up in a situation where you're forced to have to listen to, oh my gosh, what's going on with my body, etc. So we're going to do an activity, and it's called, we're going to connect with yourself. It's called a body scan. It's going to take about 2 or 3 minutes for us to do. So before we begin, I'd like you to take a moment to check in with your body. Notice how you're feeling physically and mentally. Are you feeling energized or tired? Are you feeling hungry or thirsty? If you're feeling thirsty, take a sip of water and allow yourself to feel the refreshing sensation of hydration. If you're feeling hungry, take a deep breath and imagine nourishing food filling you up with energy. If you're feeling tired, take a moment to close your eyes and take a few deep breaths, allowing yourself to relax and recharge. As we begin the mindful activity, start by taking a few deep breaths and allowing yourself to settle into the present moment. Feel your body grounded and connected to the earth beneath you. As you continue to breathe, bring your attention to your thoughts. Notice any thoughts that come up, and without judgment, simply observe them and let them pass by like clouds in the sky. Next, bring your attention to your body. Notice any sensations or discomfort you may be experiencing. Take a moment to adjust your posture and find a comfortable position. Finally, bring your attention back to your breath. Take a few deep breaths and notice the sensation of air moving in and out of your body. As we come to the end of this mindful activity, Take a moment to reflect on how you're feeling. Are you feeling more relaxed and present in the moment? Did you notice any changes in your hunger, thirst, or energy levels? Remember that checking in with your body and taking care of your basic needs is an important part of nurturing yourself and mindfulness.
Thank you, Chandra.
And there is a couple of things in the chat. Just somebody saying they have a hard time letting go of family, can't let go of family. And then someone else just said it's something I really need to work on. I spend so much of my time on my family, making sure my kids are okay and healthy, that when I'm sick, it kind of comes as a surprise to me.
Yeah, on the first one, I think that was put in when we were talking about letting things go. You don't have to let go of the family, but you can let go of the tension that they cause you, right? You don't have to put your energy into it. Doesn't mean, you're right. Sometimes you can't let go of toxic family members or family members. My daughter's a lot of work. She's a source of a lot of stress. I'm not going to just let her go. It's just a fact of life. But where I put my energy, and that is into more productive things. In terms of, I think that really illustrates the comment about when you get sick, it comes as a surprise to you, because we're shutting down those signals all the time, right? All of a sudden, boom, you got something major going on. There probably were little clues along the way, right? And or that you're just so worn down that a cold's going to knock you off your feet. But really taking the time to tune into yourself, how, even just a couple times a day, start with, okay, I'm going to check in with my body. How am I feeling? Am I tired? Am I thirsty? Am I hungry? Just grabbing a glass of water and recognizing you're feeling thirsty can improve your mental clarity immensely. So we're going to talk about what are some ways you can nurture yourself. Chandra and I, aside from working on a lot of different projects together, are also friends. And I'm very much appreciate her influence in my life, but I am not a mindfulness person. For me, it's, the things that I do to nurture myself are very different than the things Chandra does, And to me, it's about finding, things that bring you that joy, that kind of nurture your soul, that make you feel good. It absolutely can be whatever makes you happy, right? And for me, I love going garage sailing in the spring. I love a good deal, right? And for me, finding time for myself away from my daughter, where I can just go and have fun. If I take her with me, I got to load her in and out of the car, into her wheelchair, then back into her. That's really hard when you want to stop all over. So, getting time away just for myself and a friend who likes to do it. And I like to go find a good bargains, and, it's kind of like a treasure hunt to me. So what are some ways that you can nurture yourself? And I do see a comment, it takes longer and more energy to recharge a dead battery than to maintain an even level. I think that's an excellent point. We would not let our phones get to completely dead, right? And we see it starting to get down to, 15%, it goes in the red. We're like, oh, we plug in, right? And you guys can use the chat or you can unmute, but what are some ways you can nurture yourself? Beach time, right? If you live by a beach, that would be really convenient. Anyone else want to?
For me, sometimes it's just allowing myself to sit and actually watch a full movie without being interrupted at the end of the night, like taking that time and just being okay with no, sit still, be still, enjoy the peace and quiet. And if you want to watch a movie now, you watch a movie. Giving myself permission.
Yeah, that seems to be such a hard thing to do sometimes, isn't it? It feels selfish, but it's really not. Long hot shower with body scrub and bath steamer. Yeah, those pampering things do feel good, right? Absolutely. If you can do them even at home, I think that's fantastic. Sometimes I have, for me, one of the ways I nurture myself, I think laughter is very energizing and replenishing for me. Chandra knows I like to joke, but calling one of my friends and just having a good laugh over something, it can be even just the silliest thing, right? Alone time with a good book or a sweet treat, but it always feels like I'm being selfish. It's not being selfish. It feels like it, especially because I think oftentimes as a parent, we feel like we have to give and give and give and give. Glass of wine and listening to oldie goldies. I keep the 70s channel on my car. And it's so funny because I actually, like, you would think it would be the 80s because that's when I graduated. But there's something very nostalgic about that music from my early years. Someone has their hand up.
Yes, my name is Ebony. This has been kind of interesting for me because I am a parent of three, two of which are high schoolers, and I also have a 5-year-old. And recently I came into a situation where my sister has 7 and I had to take on 3 of hers. So I had a little, drastic change there that kind of, it was like, at me, it was like a standstill on everything, even down to, the usual activity I used to do as far as going to get my nails done, my feet, eyebrows, like all of that was put at a halt. So they recently, their mothers recently came back, and I'm trying to get back into the groove of things. But even still now, like getting back to normal with my 3, it's like, okay, everything had went kind of haywire. And I'm like, how do I get back to that point of having the time for myself, like doing, things for myself, because, of the, stress, and not only that, the anxiety, whatnot, of just trying to get back to normal. How, you know?
That actually leads well into our next question of what is stopping you, right?
Okay.
I think one strategy that I have found really helpful is scheduling it. Put it on the calendar, put it on your phone, tell people about it, set up childcare if you have to, whatever, and then protect that time to the best of your ability. It may not always happen, and that's okay, but keep doing it, keep scheduling it, right? Whether it's, I just started going to the gym, which is not only good for me, it feels good to me, and my husband knows that during that time, if my daughter has caregivers that come in, but they usually leave before I get home. So he knows, you're on, Dad, you got to take care of, hold the fort down till I get back. And, he's okay with that. And does anybody else have any thoughts in terms of either what's stopping you or strategies to overcome the difficulty and sometimes following through with nurturing yourself?
I would just say most situations don't happen overnight. Sometimes things do happen overnight, but most things are a buildup. So you have to give yourself love and grace that it's not going to go back instantaneously either. It's a process, and choosing one thing to concentrate on versus trying to just say, I want to get back to normal, even though that's the ultimate goal, but choosing one thing. So like for Ebony, maybe you don't have time to get your nails and your brows and everything done, but maybe just get your brows done. That's a 10-minute process, and get into the habit of doing that, and then build in another half hour for doing something. But just give yourself the break that you don't have to do it all at one time.
That's excellent advice. Thank you. Was that Amy? Was your name? Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Amy.
I am a parent of an adult child with autism, and I also work with families that have children with a variety of medical and developmental needs. So I can absolutely tell everyone, it's easier to say it than to do it yourself. And I am hypocritical and I forget to take care of myself as well. But I can also tell you that you will hit a wall. You do hit that wall at some point, that if you don't take care of yourself, then who's going to take care of everybody when you go down? So keeping in mind that you're an important part, and showing your family that you're an important part of this family too, and that you're not at the bottom of the pile. And that teaches our children as well that we are important members of the family as well.
And it models for them, right? We certainly would not want our children to go to the point of exhaustion and getting sick. And so we're showing them that it's okay to take care of themselves, and it's important to take care of themselves.
I'm sorry, I have another comment, and it kind of runs back, kind of off subject, but still on subject. I lost my mom back in 2021, April, and me and my sister, we're the only kids. So remind you, I have 3, my sister has 7, while my mom was the backbone, like for her, and her 7, I kind of stood on my own 2 feet. So with losing my mom, it's been like that downhill as well, for my sister, even having the advocacy or however, of dealing with her kids, I don't know if, being so many or, whatnot, but with the perspective, of me having to take that extra on. And it was like, when she talks about the, being there for family, it's like, that's what I've been like, even before my mom passed. It was like, even down to her and to my mom's and my sister's arguments or whatever, like I was the backbone barrier there. And it's like still, in my mind, I'm like, okay, we're, my sister, like, I kind of feel like, okay, well, grow up, because we're grown and, you have children of your own. But as well, it's like also having that feeling of having to, do it. Someone has to do it. So I have to be that backbone. I have to be that strength for the family because it's just me and her. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Which kind of, drains me out.
Yep. Yeah, having that kind of responsibility is a lot, and I'm sorry for the loss of your mom.
Thank you.
Yeah, but like we talked about earlier, if you just keep pushing through and ignoring taking care of yourself, eventually you're not going to be able to do it anymore. So, and actually that really lends itself to our next section, which we talk about cultivating community, which is really about having supports in a community that you can go to help you be that person you have to be, and to give you, support. Chandra?
Yeah. So we know relationships take time and effort. And if we aren't investing any effort, it's no wonder we feel alone. Connecting with empathetic and understanding people can remind you that you're not alone during difficult times. Focus on finding trustworthy and compassionate individuals who validate your feelings, which will support the skill of resilience. Acknowledge that not everyone has family that is supportive or helpful, and it could be toxic. And also accepting help from others, So the pain of traumatic events can lead some people to isolate themselves, but it's important to accept help and support from those who care about you. Whether you go on a weekly date night with your spouse or plan a lunch out with a friend, try to prioritize genuinely connecting with people who care about you. And as you become part of something bigger than yourself, along with one-to-one relationships, some people find that being active and a part of civic groups, faith-based communities, or other local organizations provide social support and can help you reclaim hope. And I'll even say, shout out for Kristen, Facebook groups and things like that. Research groups in your area that could offer you support and a sense of purpose or joy when you need it. And that's going to lead us into the 3 circles of community. Most individuals have learned to have multiple circles of community, each with varying degrees of trust, depending on the people, relationships, and the circumstances involved. There's not just one way to look at community. Relationships are too complex to fit inside this one-size-fits-all approach.
All right, so we're going to do our next activity that we need our blank piece of paper. And you guys are going to think, boy, they're really about circles here, right? But we'd like you to draw another big circle with 2 littler circles in it. And as I go through what each of these circles represent, I'd like you to start putting in some names. Even just a couple in each one is fine, but thinking about some names. So most individuals have multiple circles of community, as Chandra said, and it varies depending about how much trust you have, how much time you've spent with the person. But we're going to break it down into the first one. This is the group of individuals that you would consider your acquaintances. You know their names and you interact with them pretty regularly. The circle is characterized by probably the lowest degree of trust. These aren't your besties, right? These are people you work with, maybe people that you interact with regularly, maybe a neighbor who's a nice person, someone you went to high school with, maybe that you connect with now and then, people at your church, or if you volunteer, that you interact with regularly. So take a moment and think about people that you would put in this circle as acquaintances. The next circle, number 2, contains the relationships that have a little bit more trust. And that is characterized by having more personal information, right? You have had more maybe in-depth conversations. You have some trust to maybe reveal some personal details. So maybe someone that you're pretty friendly with, a trusted coworker or associate. You know, this is someone you'd go out to lunch with, right? This is someone you'd hang with, your friends. You maybe don't tell them your deepest, darkest secrets, but you would share some issue in your life with them. They maybe give you some good advice, or might go to a movie together. So think of a couple people that you would consider yourself friendly with, friends. Like I said, not your closest people, but friends. Family could fall in any one of these categories as well. So you may have a family member you're particularly close with. You may have a family members that you just kind of interact with, and some that you talk to now and then. And then lastly, circle number 3, I'd like you to put in, these are your super close people, right? These are the people, these are your ride or dies. These are the people that are there for you. You trust them. So take a minute and look at your circle. Is it balanced? Is it not balanced? Do you have more in one circle than the other circle? And I think it's important to look at, there's movement between these circles, right? If you'd have done this 3 years ago, it'd probably have different people in it. People come in and out of our lives. But I think the important thing to think about is if you want to increase the people that are in the middle circle, it starts from the outer circle. So increasing your connection with other people, whether it be through, you know, any type of church activity or neighborhood activities. And we have a couple ways that you can look at growing that circle so that eventually, I mean, you don't meet people and all of a sudden they're your best friend typically. So as you work on growing the outer part of your circle, it will start to filter down into making the inner part of your circle bigger as well.